So starting with the first category, and that's the technical aspect. So when I think about the technical aspect from a entry-level perspective, some of the things that come to mind is just some basic networking. So understanding some basic networking, things like IP addressing, DNS, DHCP, understand what those protocols do, the functionality of those protocols, because a lot of times just having that basic understanding of it will help you to do some troubleshooting. So I remember when I was in help desk, when I was in help desk, I wasn't doing really anything networking. I wasn't logging into no routers, logging into no switches. But if I went out to a PC and I saw that that PC was getting a 169 IP address, I clearly knew that, okay, this PC isn't grabbing an address from DHCP, because I understood how DHCP works. I understood how all that works. So it made it better for me when going and troubleshooting issues from a help desk perspective or from a desktop perspective, because like I said, usually, especially desktop, because usually desktop, you're going to be the boots on the ground. So, and desktop is a role that someone could get as their first IT role also. So coming in from that perspective, just having a little bit of network training, knowing some basic networking, it helps you out along the job. So from an entry level perspective, I would say that you need to at least know some networking basics. And then adding on to the networking basics, I would say you need to be familiar with some command line tools like ping, Ipconfig. Ping, you can test connectivity with other devices, which comes in handy no matter if you're in networking, server, desktop, help desk operations. Ping is something that you use on the daily. So having a good understanding, knowing how to use ping, know how to use Ipconfig, because that way you can quickly see your network settings on a PC from the command line. And then just being familiar with different operating systems. So most of us, I would say, if taking a guess, about 60% of us probably grew up on a Windows system. So we're probably pretty familiar with how Windows systems operate. So knowing your way around the Windows OS, being familiar with a little Mac OS now, because some places we'll have Macs, but most of the time I've yet to see a whole organization where even their end users are using Macs. So, but having some familiarity, being a little bit familiar with it will help out, because you may have a case here and there where someone or some department, let's say you got a graphic design department, 9 times out of 10, they might be using Macs. So having for being a little bit familiar with it will help you out. Then also being familiar with Linux. So I would say that Linux will probably help you out more if you're even going into that server perspective. So having some knowledge of Linux, how their operating systems work. But for the main time, for the entry level role, I would say knowing some Windows OS, because 9 times out of 10, the enterprise you're working at is probably going to be mainly Windows, if I had to take an educated guess. So just knowing about Windows, knowing how to troubleshoot some OS related issues, knowing about your event viewer, knowing about different system utilities that you can use to kind of help you to troubleshoot the different OS issues. So being familiar just with that Windows OS. And then once you get familiar with that Windows OS, I would say, if possible, throw in a little hardware, being able to install RAM, install the operating system, things like that, installing, updating software, different applications. Most companies may have a proprietary application that their development team has made. So being able to just know how to troubleshoot the different applications. A lot of times, if they do have that proprietary application, a lot of times you'll have a lot of training on that application in general. So, but just knowing your way all around a PC, a little bit from the hardware perspective, because if you do happen to land a desktop role, then you're definitely going to be adding RAM to PCs. That's probably one of the things that's never going to go away. So adding RAM, and then just being able to take apart a PC, which in most cases, in my desktop role, I didn't really have to do that a lot. Most of the time it ended up where if I had a bad PC, I could either change the hard drive, may have to add some RAM, re-image it. But then there was some times where you may be low on PCs where you don't have a brand new one you can just grab, where, you have to kind of get into your hardware bag then and start piecing together a PC to make it work in order to return it to the end user. So moving on to the second category, which is problem solving. So with problem solving, this is where you're going to end up. You need to have some kind of critical thinking skills, being able to diagnose and resolve common technical issues. A lot of times if you're at an organization, a lot of them have what we like to call a knowledge base, where for every issue, they may have a documentation or a document that has some of the common issues you get with this application. So if you're having an issue with a certain application, you get a call on it or you get a ticket on it, first thing to do, check this knowledge base, see if it has a fix on it. Because a lot of times, if depending on the organization, but most of them, I would expect for them to have this. I know when I used to work at the call center, so I worked for Vonage for a little bit. Trust me, I did not work there long because it was a call center. So I think that's the only job I ever quit without a backup plan either. I just cold turkey quit it. But when I worked at Vonage, you have different scripts that you have to go by. So if someone calls, you have that script that you read out and things like that. And depending on what their issue is, we had a knowledge base for their issue. So let's say someone call and say that, okay, I'm not getting a connection. I could look at the knowledge base, look at common issues, connection issues. I click on that on the knowledge base. It brings up the different little prompts that I can go through to help resolve that issue. So, but also there will be a point in time where you're going to get a lot of issues that may not be in that knowledge base. So this is where you need to have at least some kind of critical thinking and problem solving skills, being able to work through the problem. I know in networking, a lot of us, we like to work through the different problems using the OSI model. So if you know the OSI model, please do not throw sausage pizza away. For all my OGs, I'm pretty sure you know what that means. So please do not throw sausage pizza away. A lot of us go by that OSI model where we start at layer 1, that physical layer, and do our due diligence there. If that layer 1 is functioning, we move up to layer 2, that data link layer. This is where I may be on the switch looking at the MAC addresses, making sure everything's showing up on the switch, then move on to layer 3. So in your critical thinking process, and this is going to grow as you get experience, but I would say at least come to the table with a little bit of knowledge on some basic troubleshooting steps. I know you have a lot of things you can search Google for troubleshooting PCs or troubleshooting applications, and have a little walkthrough of the different steps to take. So there's a lot of things that you can research to try to get better at it. But I would say that this is something that you're going to need, because most places, they will have that knowledge base, but then you're going to come to a point in time where you get an issue that's not in that knowledge base, and you need to know how to go through, thoroughly troubleshoot it, document your troubleshooting steps, because that way, if it ends up being something you need to escalate, then whoever you escalating it to, they see the steps that you took. And that could serve two purposes. So first purpose, it could help that person, whoever you escalate the ticket to not retrace your steps and go ahead and do something else to solve that issue. Another thing that it can do that most people don't think about is that you're sending tickets to the network team. You're sending tickets to the server team. So one thing that's going to stand out, if all your tickets are very well documented, people will notice that. So you sending this ticket to networking, and after a while they're gonna say, "Oh, Mike's tickets are real good. He always have all the information. He always done went through a lot of troubleshooting steps." So that way, when an opening comes up, and old Mike apply, then someone's gonna say, "Oh, his tickets are usually very thorough and well documented." And that might be something to give me a little bit of leverage in order to get me an interview. Then once I win over the interview, now I done went from this entry-level role up to networking. So use it as a stepping stone. So you always want to have good tickets, because trust me, if you do bad tickets, words travel fast. So bad tickets, I say the words travel real fast. So don't try to just rush and do a ticket. Make sure you get all the information. And also it's good that if you put the troubleshooting steps that you done took, because for someone at that higher level, when they get that ticket, it's good to see that someone at the help desk or someone in operations went through and did the due diligence to make sure that this wasn't an issue that they could resolve before escalating it up.